Just when I turn around, there's a whole pile of stimulus news that we've got to get to. Hey, everyone, welcome to the show. If you're new here, hey, we welcome you with open arms. We've got a great community of people here. I'm Clayton Morris. This is the only progressive business show on the internet. We cover progressive issues and business news all in one, things that matter to you and your family. So thank you so much for finding us. We've got a lot of stimulus news that happened this afternoon. I'm going to break it all down, contextualize it for you, chew it up, spit it out, stomp on it, hide it underneath the rug, and hope that tomorrow, when we do our live show at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, there will be some new good news that came out of all of that. So let me get to the news of the day this afternoon. So where we left off this morning on our live show, of course, the White House now sticking their nose into this mix, calling on, I don't know where they came up with this idea. Stephen Mnuchin rolls out this $916 billion plan. They want to eliminate all unemployment benefits, $0 in unemployment benefits, but we'll give you $600 stimulus checks, which everyone looked around like, the White House? Like, what the hell are you doing now? You're getting involved in this suddenly? Where have you guys been? So everyone kind of laughed off this White House plan. And the big plan that everyone's been talking about, of course, is the $908 billion compromise plan from 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans. And we learned more about what is actually in that bill today. So let's start here. This is what we got today. The big news this afternoon is more pieces of what's going to unfold in this $900 billion stimulus plan. Democrats seem to be on board. A lot of Republicans are on board. We'll get to Mitch McConnell in a second. We'll get to Turtle Boy in a second. Because as you can imagine by our thumbnail tonight, there's one big roadblock, and yes, it's Turtle Boy. So I want to get to some of the bipartisan news on this group of 10 individuals, and let's go through some of the details. The bipartisan group unveiled new details on the stimulus package this afternoon. They want, as part of this $900 billion plan, we're now getting more details because we didn't know how much unemployment benefits. It was speculated it would be $300, and that remains right now. $300 in unemployment benefits per week for 16 weeks. That would start January 1st and last 16 weeks. Sadly, though, there's going to have to be if they can't get this done in time, there's going to be a lapse. So if you're relying on unemployment benefits through the end of the year, there may be a few week lapse. Good news is that it'll be retroactive back to January 1st if, in fact, you're able to file for it. But again, there's probably going to be a lapse given the holidays and the fact that Congress sucks, let's be honest. Also, a new summary also provides more details about the Paycheck Protection Program that will be part of this $908 billion plan. According to the summary, the proposal would make businesses eligible for a second PPP loan if they have 300 or fewer employees and had a revenue loss of 30% in any quarter in 2020. Need to show a revenue loss in 2020. It would also make local chambers of commerce eligible for PPP loans, expand the types of expenses that PPP loans can be used for and be forgiven, and include set-asides. That's actually pretty. So expand the types of expenses that PPP loans can be used for, because in the previous batch, payroll and utilities, rent, things like that for your business were covered under the PPP loan. Now this will expand that, and we don't have more details on that just yet, but the good news is that will be expanded, and businesses in underserved communities will receive loans. And what's good too is that this will also have loans that could be forgiven. So taking additional loans for small businesses that could ideally be forgiven. Great news. Additionally, it would simplify the loan forgiveness process for businesses that received loans of $150,000 or less. And it would specify that business expenses paid with PPP loan proceeds are tax deductible. Boom. That is a huge point. Look, I know for a lot of you, you're like, hey, Clayton, I don't care. I don't have a business, but just hold on because we're going to get to the individual stuff in a moment. But a lot of small business owners that got smashed. And this is very important because now this money that you're receiving, that you're able to use from the business expenses that you're able to pay for using PPP are also a write-off now. They weren't before. That's a huge deal. That's huge. I mean, I can't stress that enough. That could completely alter the trajectory of a small business. Now, look, I'm not getting too flowery here. Okay. There's a lot I don't like about this. It's way too small. Don't get me started. But like, if you're giving us little scraps right now, at least some of those scraps are decent. In addition to including funds for the PPP, the bipartisan proposal would also include separate funding for live venue operators that have been hurt by pandemic-related stay-at-home orders. You know, lots of people. I have a lot of friends in that business crushed by it. The hospitality industry, but live venue industry, all of it's decimated. The proposal would extend the eviction moratorium until the end of January. Really? January, the worst month of the year. I will go out on a limb and say December's the best month of the year. My birthday, Christmas, it's all good. January sucks. Really terrible, right? Nothing to look forward to. It's cold, miserable. People are going to be out of their homes. The eviction moratorium dries up at the end of January. Come on, man. Come on, really? And it would provide $25 billion in rental assistance to state and local Native American tribes. Okay, so just Native American tribes? 25 billion for Native American tribes and for people that are behind on their rent, 25 billion? Dare I put up this chart again? Don't make me do it. All right, I'm going to do it. Let me bring up my little trusty chart here. Take a look at it. The new numbers from the Washington Post. Well, not from the Washington Post. This is from the Federal Reserve, featured in the Washington Post. In December, $5,000 is the average of $1.3 million rental households where they're behind on their rent. Look at it, just snowballing from March, April, May, snowball. So you're going to give us peanuts, $25 billion for those people that are suffering right now. Look, I'm glad they include Native American tribes in this. To be honest with you, they have been absolutely decimated. Horrible COVID statistics. You don't need to look far to understand. Just do a little search, have a little empathy, and look how bad these tribes have been crushed by this. Awful. Simply awful. Especially when one of their main sources of revenue had been casinos. But $25 billion for other individuals suffering. How are they going to apply for this? I want to know all of these things, which we still don't know. Will this be applied through HUD? How will this be doled out? We don't know. So just hang with me on this as we still dissect this. Other areas of the proposal where the summary differs include funds for healthcare, education providers, vaccine development, distribution, testing, tracing, and food assistance. Once again, zero money in here for stimulus checks. Okay, zero money for stimulus checks. And Mitch McConnell, of course, comes out on Tuesday afternoon suggesting that we set aside two issues to get to a compromise. Two issues. Now, this sounds like a great compromise. Think, okay, he's really dialing it in here. This compromise, this idea of setting aside both issues, one of which is liability insurance or liability coverage for these businesses that don't take care of their workers, and state and local government money. So they're not even the same. Like, here's the thing: you're trying to make the moral argument that these two things are the same. When you're lining these two items up on a platter, you're basically saying, okay, over here we have the ability for companies to screw over their workers by not putting in proper protections against COVID and other harmful diseases in the workplace. And if they get sick, they have no legal liability. They have no legal liability to, for that employee. So they're fine. That employee is screwed. They have to work those long hours in this environment where we didn't protect them. That's one side of this argument. Once again, Mitch McConnell lining up to take care of the big businesses, the corporate elites. You always come through for us, Mitch. You always do. Well, I do. Ooh. And then over here, you have state and local revenue, state and local governments right now, which are having to cut sanitation workers. So like in New York City, for instance, trash piling up, other cities where they don't have money for sanitation, transportation. So subway lines, bus lines, having to cut routes up to 40%. The people that rely on buses to get to and from work or to go shopping. Once again, this hurts low-income Americans. It hurts those people that don't have cars, that rely on these institutions, these programs to live. So you're making a moral equivalency here. And I'm not going to let you do it. And by the way, neither are a lot of people. In fact, Representative Katie Porter went to task on this. Now, this is one of the most epic sort of tweet threads that I've seen in a while. So here is Representative Katie Porter, and she just does not hold back. So I want to go through this. It's a little long. She starts this thread, but it is well worth it. She says, when I came to Congress, I knew I had a responsibility to pull back the curtain for the American people and expose corruption in real time. So I'm filling you in on Senator Mitch McConnell's attempts over the last 8 days to tank a bipartisan COVID relief bill. You may have heard that Democrats and Republicans have agreed on spending $900 billion to fund another round of small business loans, support hospitals, essential workers, help the 10 million people who lost their jobs at no fault of their own. Everyone at the negotiating table, including Senate Republicans, has agreed to a compromise except one. Mitch McConnell is refusing to bring it to the floor unless it wipes away all COVID-related lawsuits filed that allege injury or death due to corporate negligence. These lawsuits represent the worst of the worst examples of disregard for human life. Cases filed on behalf of nursing home patients and grocery store workers who died because of the company in charge of keeping them safe prioritize cutting costs over protecting them. The same McConnell who said that President Trump is 100% within his rights to pursue baseless lawsuits alleging election fraud is now refusing to pass urgently needed relief unless it strips those same rights from the most vulnerable among us. This must be exposed. It has been. I wish we kind of got this much scrutiny on bills that weren't quietly rushed through Congress, like the defense bill to fund the Defense Department and our continuing endless wars. Like, imagine the scrutiny where we could go through and look at all of this stuff, but instead Congress just rushes that crap through so we don't get to see it or pay much attention to it. And it's done before we ever get to blink. So he wants liability protection. Like, that's the thing he had been holding out for. Well, it seems like he's willing to maybe put that on the shelf. Okay, maybe we'll drop that piece, which should be dropped anyway, because there's a lot of Republicans that don't care for it, that don't want it. His liability protection for businesses. Like, that's been the number one thing that he's been focused on since July, by the way. There's no moral equivalency to state and local governments not being able to pay sanitation workers, municipal workers, firefighters, police officers across the country. There's no equivalency whatsoever. You can't put up money for unemployment benefits of $600 or more. You can't put up money for stimulus checks for the American people. But you can sure as hell do this, right? Well, Mitch McConnell and Senator Schumer took to the floor today to bash each other. And this is worth watching. Watch.
Senator McConnell is trying to pull the rug out from beneath the Gang of Eight. We believe they have been making good progress, and they ought to be allowed to move forward because they are the best hope for a bipartisan solution.
And it seems like that's the case. We have nothing else. The White House proposal of, $916 billion is a total farce. Does not include unemployment benefits. It's a total ruse. I don't even know why they bothered with it. I don't even know why they even bothered. It's not even getting any traction. It's a joke. Everyone's throwing out their different ideas right now. So Mitch McConnell fires back and says, I think I made a good proposal. I think, let's do it. I think this is good. Can anybody get any more cotton balls to shove in my mouth? Anybody have any more cotton balls?
My view, and I think it's a view shared by literally everybody on both sides of the aisle, we can't leave without doing a COVID bill. The country needs it. We have an agreement that we need to do this.
Called it a...
Wow, that's great. Really providing some amazing words there, Mitch. I think everybody agrees we need to pass a COVID bill before we go back to our stately homes. I don't know what my butler's going to do if he can't get his COVID relief bill. I'll have to go back to Kentucky. And Jeeves will take care of me. But I think we all agree we got to get this done. Yeah. We should have got this done back in June. I come back to what Australia did. Can you humor me for a minute on Australia? Just an example of a country that has it together, has their shit together, as an example. So they passed stimulus back in the spring, right? Massive stimulus. Stimulus and subsidies for their businesses and wages so that people were taken care of. What else they did was they set a sunset provision in there so that towards July or June, I think it was actually, they had a window. They had to come back together and decide whether or not they should pass another round in September. They had the forethought to think, okay, this might not go so well, so let's come back together in June to have a pre-decision? I don't know. Decide that by September, we should probably pass something else. They decided in June that things were terrible, and they decided that in September, they'd pass another round. Brilliant, right? Wow, imagine that. We can't do anything. Instead, our Congress just took months off, and they're about to go home back to their stately homes. Democrats, for their part in this whole discussion right now, Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Senator Josh Hawley, and others are demanding stimulus checks be included in this next round, that it's a non-starter for them. In fact, they're calling for additional stimulus for each individual. So not even just $1,200 for the one individual, but then upwards of additional money for their children as well and dependents, upwards of $500 for them. Probably won't get any traction with Mitch McConnell running the show. But I come back to this, the sticking point again, once again, of course, is Mitch McConnell and this idea that we have this moral equivalency between state and local money and liability protection for these businesses. Now, we're talking about $160 billion in this package. $160 billion, according to the latest reports, would go to state and local governments. He says, look, as the basis for good faith negotiations, I'm willing to drop my liability protections. So even as I'm sitting here bringing this report to you, there's additional breaking news coming in right now on what is in this $908 billion package. Again, I think we can throw out these other little piddly packages right now, the one from the White House and the one from Mitch McConnell, that $500 billion one last week. It's not going anywhere. The $908 billion plan seems to be coming together. We're learning more about this right now. If only we can get over those two areas, liability insurance or liability protection and state and local money. So the state and local money right now sits at $140 billion in this package. But if Mitch McConnell gets his way, that'll be removed. But here, among other items that are now showing up in this thing, funding for schools. The bill would provide $82 billion for aid in K through 12 and colleges. Earlier proposals from Republicans and Democrats called for $100 billion. So this is less for schools because, schools don't make bombs. Here's an idea. Since we're able to fund the Defense Department like this, fund the Pentagon, make endless wars and bombs and all this crap that we don't need, but we can go over and bomb people in the Middle East and kill as many civilians as we want. That's our focus. How about we have schools start making bombs in shop class? How about that? Maybe then they'd get the funding they need. Hey, little Billy, how was school today? Great, Daddy. I made a bunker busting bomb. Oh, that's nice. Just an idea. It also carves out $6.25 billion for broadband development, thank God, and $3 billion to help schools provide hotspots and devices for students who might not have internet at home for virtual learning. Great. I don't know that it goes far enough, but we have a country that seems like it's from 1970 when you have Rwanda, who went through a massive genocide, has better internet infrastructure than the United States. Estonia has faster internet speeds than the United States. Come on, man. It's about time. And you have, underprivileged, lower income families across this country that don't have internet access. And if they're being asked to do virtual learning because the government's telling them to go home, they are being left behind. Rental assistance also in here. So we are seeing, I already covered this, but this is more details on it. It would expire at the end of January 31st, the eviction protection, which is the moratorium, and $25 billion in rental assistance to states and local governments. Okay. I don't know how that will be partitioned, given out. But the good news is that there are a lot of states that were able to step in and handle this for rental programs and rental assistance. So if you are in an area right now where you are behind in rent, you can call your local municipalities, ask them about different rental assistance programs. In fact, a lot of different charities have been stepping in and helping with rental assistance. So please, contact, dial 611 in your area. That's an information line. You can find out if there are any programs available for you. Reach out to your local municipalities and see what other options are available if you are behind in your rent. Here's another big one, nutrition assistance. The agreement would boost individual food stamp benefits by 15% for 4 months. Democrats have been pushing this for some time now. It would also expand the pandemic EBT program to families and children in childcare. It would provide money to low-income families with school-aged children in lieu of the free and reduced price meals that they would receive in school. So this will be an increase. They can cover that. It would also provide more funding for food banks, food pantries through the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and it would offer more nutrition assistance for senior citizens, young adults living in emergency shelters, Puerto Rico and other territories, and those in women and infants and children in the WIC program as well. It would give aid for airlines. The bill would extend the payroll support program through March 31st to help airlines. It would also provide additional funding for airports, bus companies, public transportation systems, and Amtrak. Good. State and local aid. Again, the agreement calls, they've upped it now. Okay, here's a bit of breaking news. It went from $140 billion. They've now increased the amount for state and local governments. Mitch is not going to like this. $160 billion. This has been, of course, the most contentious part. And this would reach beyond the original 150 that they had back in March in the CARES Act. And the National Governors Association, made up of Democrats and Republican governors, are calling for $500 billion to help them out last week. They said, look, we support whatever you're going to give us. Give us 150, we'll figure it out. But we are being crushed. They're asking for $500 billion. It also adds U.S. Postal Service aid, $10 billion without requiring repayment. Again, I'm not sure. They've been, of course, bleeding capital. I don't know why that's being tied to this, but they've been, of course, crushed as it related to elections. And we still have elections going on in Georgia. Early voting starts on December 14th for the new round of elections that are unfolding on January 5th for the runoff elections. So these are the very latest numbers that are just coming into us right now. And of course, the White House proposal included $600 direct payments, but at the expense of the unemployment benefits. Lawmakers on both sides said, done. This is a non-starter. Republicans and Democrats laughed it off. I don't even know where the White House is coming from with this kind of crap. Like, they're sitting around the White House saying, I got an idea. Excuse me, Mr. President. I know you're busy tweeting. Can I interrupt you for a second? Can you put down your Big Mac for a second? I have an idea. How about we tell people we're going to cut all of their unemployment benefits and we're going to give them a $600 check instead? Yeah, sign me up for that math. Failure, absolute failure. And I'll put a button on it with this. Josh Hawley of Missouri has come out and said, we absolutely need another round of stimulus checks in the amount of $1,200, like the ones we sent to 160 million people earlier this year, and it's now worse. As I point out, once again, my trusty little chart, I'm going to keep reminding you of it. This is the average that people are behind in their rent right now. $5,000 behind rent. Where is that going to come from? And guess what's going to happen? When that eviction moratorium dries up at the end of January, those people will be out on the streets. There was a ray of sunshine today. I brought you the news earlier, but if you're joining us for our late edition, student loans could be eradicated as a result of Joe Biden, with the strike of a pen, removing student loan debt up to $50,000. Earlier today, we heard from Chuck Schumer, who is, of course, the minority leader in the Senate. Mitch McConnell could lose power on January 5th, and Schumer could become the majority leader, but he is calling on President-elect Biden to, with a stroke of a pen, wipe away up to $50,000 in student loan debt for those people that are making under $150,000 in salary. Would transform America. and I'm a huge fan of, I don't know why 50,000 is the cap. Wipe away all student loan debt. Yeah, instead of making a few aircraft carriers for a little time, why don't we shore up an entire generation of young people, get them out from behind this like albatross that's around their neck. So that he could be done through executive order with the strike of a pen. Would not need congressional approval. And he would have his education secretary that would sign off on that in the cabinet and get it done. So this is the power of the executive branch. This is the power of executive orders. And looks like it's going to happen, folks. Again, what a transformative thing could happen in the United States if President-elect Biden is able to do that upon swearing in. Imagine if he that day on the inauguration goes back to the White House to a stack of executive orders, unemployment and benefits extended, stimulus checks based on moving money around inside the government for other programs, wiping away student loan debt. Like even without a Democratic Congress, these are all things that he could do. So here you go. Some big afternoon stimulus update news for you this afternoon. And once again, it all comes down to Mitch McConnell and what the heck is he going to do? We'll see. Join us tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern time right here on the channel. Please subscribe because we do a live show every morning at 9 a.m. Eastern time. We have a great group of people that join us every morning, thousands of people. So just hit the subscribe button and then turn on a little bell notification so that way you'll get an alert as soon as we go live. And hang out with us. We have a great time every morning. We have a great group of people. So much love to all of you. Get some rest. We will see you bright and early tomorrow.